Unukut. Good evening. My name is Natan Obed. I'm the president of Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami, the national representational organization for Canada's Inuit. There are approximately 60,000 Inuit who live in Canada. 80% of Inuit live in Inuit Nunavut, and 20% now live in southern Canadian places. We call them urban or southern Inuit, because to us, everything south of our homeland is the South. And so you might think of Florida or Mexico or other places, but we think of Ottawa as the South. The title of my talk tonight is The Challenge of Our Time. And I'm going to talk about the challenge of our time in the Inuit perspective, but then the challenge of our time in a Canadian perspective. Suicide affects all of us. All of our communities, all Inuit in Canada are personally affected by suicide. And it is a challenge that we need to overcome. And so the challenge of our time for Inuit is how are we going to address the high rates of suicide in our communities and with our people, and how are we going to create a society that values and celebrates our children, our youth, and all of our people. We've created a national suicide prevention strategy that was released July 27th in Iqaluit, Nunavik. And in that strategy, we attempt to create a globally informed, evidence-based, Inuit-specific response to suicide. This is the only national suicide prevention strategy for Canada. And we hope that in the coming years, there will be other national strategies, including one that the federal government can be responsible for, that Inuit can then play a role with all other Canadians in tackling what is, as the WHO calls, a preventable public health crisis. In our strategy, we have talked about suicide in a comprehensive way, in the way that we would like to address it. It starts with social equity. It starts with health, with housing, with education. We were not too long ago living on the land, living in close-knit family groups. It wasn't until after World War II that many of our people were coerced into communities. The residential school experience, the experience of people being relocated and exiled into the high Arctic, people who were taken from their families for TB treatment for years at a time, and some of them died and never came back, and their loved ones were never told where they were buried or whether or not they even survived. These are all things that have cumulatively become issues that become historical trauma and are passed down through generations. So first and foremost, social equity means building the Canada that we all think of, but that Inuit are not a part of as of 2016. Cultural continuity is essential to our ability to address suicide. And that means that our language, our culture, our perspective on the world needs to be given to our children. Land skills, sewing skills, the connections between our youth and their parents and their grandparents, the respect and knowledge for the environment, the myths and stories and legends, all of that builds protective factors for all of our people and builds that pride in self-determination that we have for ourselves. These are things that are sometimes taken for granted. We think of suicide and suicide risks in what happened yesterday. What was the reason why this person attempted suicide? Or why are they at risk for suicide? Often we don't think back about the life course and how over time people build risk factors for suicide that then come to a point where we all identify with, well, somebody broke up with somebody or there was a traumatic life event, and that must be the reason. So in our strategy, we need to start at the societal level. Then we get to the community level. Then we think about our children. We need to do more for our children. We need the best quality early childhood development and early childhood education for our children in Canada. We then think about what we need for people who are at risk. We have people with mental health disorders, with mental health issues. We need a culturally sensitive Inuit continuum of care for mental health services in Canada. We don't have one today. We also need to ensure that we deal with trauma, people who have been at risk their entire lives because of the things that they went through as children, or that their parents or their grandparents went through that they have never talked about. We need to be able to work through those issues. 50% of women reported that they had been sexually abused as children in the Inuit Health Survey stats from 2007-2008. It's just unacceptable. We need to do more to help those people who are living with that pain. And ultimately, we need to build solutions that Inuit control, that we have a partnership with service delivery agents, that we work to ensure that no matter what we do to provide supports for people in need and to provide supports for our society, that we do that in partnership with service delivery agents, or we take responsibility for ourselves. Our vision at ITK is Canadian Inuit are united, or prospering through unity and self-determination. So the second point about the challenge of our time is the self-determination piece. And that's something that all of us in Canada can work towards. It is not acceptable that we still live in a time when professional sports teams can use derogatory names that we have told them not to use. It's unacceptable that corporations use our images, our language, our place in the world in a mocking or disrespectful way to make money off of the romantic visions of what they think we are. It's not acceptable. And in other places, for other people in Canada, it has been unacceptable for generations. But for Inuit, we still don't have that respect that then moves into a time of reconciliation. Reconciliation is not easy. Just because you have sympathy for Inuit does not mean that you have now become a part of this reconciliation movement. Reconciliation takes action. Reconciliation, thinking about it in government terms, is the full implementation of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. It is going beyond the words of nation to nation or Inuit to crown and showing Canadians what that actually means in practice. It means ending social inequity. Why is it that in Inuit Nunavut, our median income is $17,700? For non-Inuit who live in Inuit Nunavut, it's $77,000. Why is it that it's okay for us to have 250 times the rate of tuberculosis than all other Canadians who are born in Canada? Why is it okay that we have 40% overcrowding in our housing? Why is it okay that 29% of our adults have a high school education? These are not things that are not okay. And in this time of reconciliation, it is time to build a Canada for all of us. And it will take investment and it will take time, but it goes beyond sympathy. And it's something that all of us can do. And that is what ITK is here to help all Canadians achieve, is a prospering Canada for all of us, and that includes Inuit. Nakumik.